Okay, I declare this meeting, 26th of April 2021 open. I'd like to welcome Public Gallery back, even though there's only 3 there. Welcome back into the council chambers. Welcome councillors and staff. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we are on here today, the Wiradjuri people, and pay my respects to their elders, both past, present and emerging. We are having some IT problems, so I inform all those in attendance at this meeting that the meeting is being webcast, and those in attendance should refrain from making any defamatory statements concerning any person, councillor or employee, and refrain from discussing those matters subject to closed council proceedings as indicated in clause 14.1 of the Code of Meeting Practice. The meeting webcast for the April 2021 meeting has been affected by technical difficulties. A temporary webcasting solution is being utilised. This has resulted in lower quality audio output during the webcast. Members of the public gallery should be aware that audio equipment may broadcast any conversation in the gallery. I notice that there is one councillor missing, and Councillor Statham has put in an apology. Would somebody like to move that?
I'll move it.
Moved Councillor Goodsall, seconded Councillor Coleman. Those in favour? Declared that carried unanimous. Any declarations of interest?
I have one. 10.1.2, pecuniary interest in regards to black and gold. It mentions black and gold. My daughter works there as an apprenticeship.
Oh, thank you, Councillor.
I have the same there.
Thank you. Councillor Smith, Councillor Coleman. Confirmation of minutes of the last meeting. Moved Councillor Goodsall, seconded Councillor Ring.
May I have an amendment? I have an amendment to the minutes.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry, that I move an amendment that the Heritage Committee remains an existing committee with its current representatives. At the last council meeting, Councillor McAndrew moved in relation to the item. This is in relation to item. You've got me unawares here. In relation to the committees of the council that were reappointed, and Councillor McAndrew on the video moved. I moved that the committees remain the same, Mayor. Councillor McAndrew then moved that the steering committee would go to Kings Plain be removed and the Economic Development Committee remain with all councillors, and this was seconded by Councillor Goodsall. At no stage during this debate, which last council meeting went from 22 minutes and 53 seconds to 27 minutes and 5 seconds, was the Heritage Committee mentioned, yet the minutes show that it's been discontinued. I move that it actually be amendment that the Heritage Committee remains an existing committee because it was not moved at the last. The motion that was moved was not the recommendation of the council. It was the motion that was moved by Councillor McAndrew.
Can I just get clarification, Mayor, on I'm looking at the minutes, and on page 8 of the minutes, 8 of 22, under Heritage Committee, it's got discontinued.
That's correct, but that's not what you moved. You moved. I moved that the committees remain the same. And in your summing up, you did the same thing.
So you're suggesting that minutes are wrong?
I'm saying that the minutes do not reflect the motion that was moved and seconded by Councillor Goodsall. In other words, that the Heritage Committee remains a committee of this council, and it should remain so with its existing representatives.
I'll just get a commentary from the General Manager first before I ask for a second.
So, Mr Mayor, I have a number of, as well as myself, but directors that also retain a record of the conversation. I haven't looked at the video, Councillor Leslie, or councillors. I have a recollection that Council certainly moved to retain the Economic Development Committee, but it is my recollection that other than that the table was adopted as recorded in the minutes. But I would have to really look at the video to...
Well, Mayor, I moved it, and my main aim was to make sure the steering committee Lithgow to Kings Plains water transfer pipeline project was removed, because it's never ever met and never ever will. My memory, I can't recall if the Heritage was one of those committees that and I'm looking at the resolution of the night. Council reconfirmed the council appointments to the Section 355 committees, internal committees, external committees and organisations, and the Economic Development Committee focused on the Economic Diversification Project. And that was moved myself and seconded Councillor Goodsall. It was carried unanimously. So if the Heritage Committee was in there, then I agree with what Councillor Leslie is saying, and I haven't got the old papers in front of me to say whether that's right or wrong.
So Mr Mayor and Councillors, Council, the table that appears in the minutes here reflects that which was in the business paper. Mr Gurney just showed me that. And in relation to the substance of what Councillor Leslie is speaking to here, the Heritage Committee, the business paper, as was discussed at the briefing, proposed discontinuation. Now, so the table, from my understanding, was picked up by the council and approved, but there were amendments in the form of that reference to the Economic Development Committee and the like. That's my recollection. I don't remember an amendment coming forward to prevail over that which was in the table here.
Mr Mayor, with respect, the words moved by Councillor McAndrew was, and I've listened to the minutes and I've written them down, I move that the committees remain the same. And the words Heritage Committee never once were mentioned in the entire debate.
Well, I guess the debate here goes to what remained the same when Council had a report before which had discontinued. Perhaps a way forward, we can bring back a report specifically on the Heritage Committee and Council can charge a discussion on that. But the table was in the report and it was my understanding that was picked up and embraced and approved by the Council, but for the Economic Development Committee. Depends what we're discussing.
And it was certainly my intention, Mayor, to adopt the paper as written with those two slight changes. There was some move to change the economic development to less than all councillors. That remained the same, and of course the Lithgow to Kings Plains water transfer pipeline project was to be removed.
So my understanding of it is then that if the Heritage Committee wasn't in the paper on the night, that it will have to come back at a later date. Yeah. Okay, so I shall put the minutes now then, if there's no other...
Sorry, Mr Mayor, I did move an amendment. Is that being either accepted or going to be voted on?
Sorry, is there a second for Councillor Leslie?
Yeah, I'm happy to second that because I had people ringing me about the same subject today about the Heritage Committee.
Okay. Is there anybody else wants to speak in favour of the amendment?
Yeah, I will. Okay. I believe that the Heritage Committee was included. It was status quo. All committees to stay as they are until after the September election. That's my understanding of the debate. I've also had calls regarding the Heritage Committee as well.
The only thing that I can say is that the Heritage Committee wasn't in the paper. So you voted on something that wasn't in the paper. If that's what you're trying to say now, you're virtually going to have a complete change of the minutes because the Heritage Committee wasn't in the paper, and you voted to accept what was in the paper.
No, we're just voting to accept Councillor McAndrew's motion that he moved last month, which was that the committees remain the same.
Councillor McAndrew,
Well,
from my understanding, Councillor McAndrew said the committees that was in the paper remain the same.
That's exactly right, Mayor. And you could recall there was an attempt to change the economic committee as well. And it's the only two changes I recall from the paper was that and the removal of the Kings Plain pipeline. That's what I put forward. That's what I voted on.
And I never seen the Heritage Committee come up at any stage during that night.
But just to be clear again, Mr Mayor, it was in the paper, it was in the table, and that was in the recommendation. Now, councillors may not have picked up on that, but it was in the table and it was in the recommendation. There were amendments to the recommendation, but the table was moved. If councillors of the mind, we can revisit the position on the Heritage Committee. My vivid recollection is that the table was picked up. There was one committee, the consultative committee, that was abandoned, that was had finished its time, and then there was the Economic Development Committee, which was to continue, but the table was picked up.
Mayor, I think we should run with what the General Manager suggested, revisit the committees.
Pass the minutes and revisit the Heritage Committee.
Yeah.
Councillors happy with that?
Oh, well, I think we need to get the words that are actually used as a transcript. That would solve the issue.
Look, Mayor, if it does need to be cleared up. If Councillor Leslie's also saying he moved an amendment, well, I haven't got that. It's not written into the minutes.
No, he's moving an amendment now.
Okay,
to the
he
minutes.
said earlier that he moved the last time in relation to the committees remain the same.
I didn't speak to the item last council.
Okay, well, I misunderstood what you said.
Yeah.
Mr Mayor, can I suggest a way forward might be to exclude any reference to the Heritage Committee in these minutes and add an amendment that a report come back on the Heritage Committee.
I'm fine with that.
Yep.
And that'll come to the next meeting.
Okay, so I'll put that to council then. Those in favour?
Someone has to move that.
Yeah. Will somebody move that first? Councillor Goodwin, and seconded. Councillor Smith. Those in favour? Now, carried unanimous. Thank you. Okay, we move to commemorations and announcements.
Mayor, I have one. I want to acknowledge, thank and congratulate Sky News for that great story they did Sunday week ago on the Airlie mine. It not only showcased the mine and coal mining, but showcased the work of coal miners and also what coal mining delivers to this community and to the wider community. It was refreshing to see a positive story about coal and not the continued demonisation of industry and its workers. So I'm just hoping that our local media will pick up on that good story of over a week ago.
Yeah. Thanks, Councillor McAndrew. Councillor Smith.
I'd just like to thank our local community for the great effort they put in yesterday in regards to Anzac Day, and especially out of the Cullumbullen community. It was an excellent little march, and myself and Councillors Goodwin and McAndrew attended. It was a great roll-up, and it's a credit to the little community out there. It was a great day.
I'd personally like to congratulate all councillors for their effort yesterday. I think that everybody put in somewhere along the line. I know that I went to the dawn service down here at Lithgow at Queen Elizabeth Park. It was a surprise, really. There was about 50 people there, which was a real surprise, and they streamed the service from Canberra, where the Prime Minister spoke. So it was quite good, really. And then at 11 o'clock, Councillor Goodsall and myself went down and laid another reef. Not quite so many people there then. There was only about a dozen. But once again, driving around Lithgow just before the dawn service, I noticed a lot of people in their driveways with candles and so forth. So Anzac Day is alive and well, and thank you very much, councillors, for your input.
In the same vein, Mayor Thompson, I'd like to acknowledge the work and the collaboration between the Portland's RSL sub-branch, the Portland SES and RFS and Lithgow Council in organising not only the dawn service but the service later in the day. I was at the dawn service. It was extremely well run, and it is a credit to them pulling that together within 2 weeks.
Thanks, Councillor Ring. Any others?
Just one, Mr. Mayor. Just want to congratulate Brad Delosa, another big win, another world title. Puts Lithgow on the map again in the wood chopping titles.
Thanks, Brett. Yeah, certainly. Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Goodsall.
I've got one, Mr. Mayor. It was just to thank on behalf of councillors the Lithgow Community Power Project, that we were invited to their electronic vehicle drive day, and it was really enlightening. They're a volunteer group that are putting in a lot of hard work, and I'd just like to say thank you on behalf of council.
Thanks, Councillor Goodsall. Okay, we move to public forum. If there's anybody in the public forum that would like to speak on any item on the agenda tonight. No? Okay, well, we move to item 8, Merrill Minute. I was pleased to lead a delegation to Muswellbrook Shire Council on the 14th of April. We heard of initiatives taken by that council to diversify their economy. The delegation was attended by the Mayor, myself, Deputy Mayor, General Manager by video link, and the Director of Economic and Development, Mr Muir. The Muswellbrook representatives included Mayor Martin Rush and General Manager Fiona Plesman. Also, along on that went Ed Frater, who's the regional representative of the Department of Premier and Cabinet in the regional areas, and he resides at Orange, and he went across as well. Similarities between the two areas in coal mining and electricity generation provide common ground for information sharing and collaboration. In Muswellbrook's case, foreshadowed mine and power station closures are anticipated as a result in the loss of approximately 900 jobs in upcoming years, and the Council's initiative to plan for the transition were very interesting. For example, Muswellbrook have researched and levelled the level of investment that is required to offset and replace jobs at risk in the mining sector. This then led to new funding models to support and the creation of an outsourced and entrepreneurial model of economic development tasks to grow and attract replacement jobs and industries. The Council has also set up a rating structure whereby coal mining interests are charged comparatively higher rates through the SRV process. Funds accumulated are then placed into a future fund and administration and investment for transition-based initiatives through the Economic and Development Corporation. Part of the work carried out thus far has been dedicated to research, which has, for example, mapped potential areas for pumped hydro development. Funding is also being directed towards STEM, which stands for Science, Technology, Education and Mathematics for Muswellbrook's youth. An invitation has been extended for a reciprocal visit to Lithgow, and through the development of the relationship it is hoped that further ongoing collaboration with Muswellbrook and other similar local government areas can be fostered. This visit will help us as we also are working to diversify and strengthen Lithgow's economy. The General Manager intends to convene a meeting of the Council's Economic Development Committee to engage the Council on this significant task. And the recommendation is that the information in the Merrill Minute be noted and a letter of thanks be sent to the Muswellbrook Shire Council. Is there any commentary there, councillors?
I'd like to say a few words.
Yeah.
Mayor Thompson. When I read this Merrill Minute, I thought, yeah, this is a great start. It points out jobs for the future. We definitely need to diversify our economy, investment in training. However, I am concerned about the economic gap and the salary level. We need to ensure that if we're looking at diversifying our economy, that there's no cap. I mean, you've got high valued wage jobs. We need to be making sure that there's the same salary rate. We need to be lobbying the state government to invest in TAFE, a TAFE college here in Lithgow, so that we can support the jobs of the future. We also need an hourly train service so that if locals aren't able to obtain jobs here locally, that they can at least obtain jobs, in the mountains and further. We don't want to lose our residents to the east. We want to encourage them from the east to move west to Lithgow. But I think this is a great start, and it's great that you actually went and saw Muswellbrook Shire Council.
Thanks, Councillor Coleman.
Yeah, Mayor, if I
Councillor Ring.
Look, I'm glad that you went to Muswellbrook and discussions we've had. It's interesting to hear their views, particularly on Latrobe. In relation to the rating base, the Office of Local Government has just relaxed or changed the rules on the number of categories we can have, which is something that I believe Mr. Gome's team will be looking at into the future. That will not increase our revenue base, but it will allow for greater fairness and transparency in what rates are paid by what commercial operators. So we may see some change in industries across the board. As for the future, we need to have a plan. It's not just a matter of going to the government cap in hand. We need to think about our future, and the General Manager, through I think it's the Department of Premier, has got a program going which will see us commit 100,000, the government commit 250,000, to take the plan that was done by our working party that much further into a more detailed plan that allows us to move forward. We're not going to retain necessarily a lot of high-paid jobs. That's great. Sounds good. There are miners that when the mines close, and I'm hearing all sorts of things about the mines, Councillor Smith and McAndrew know better, but the report that Councillor McAndrew was talking about earlier, I believe Katie Brazel talked about earlier, having 10 years. Miners will follow the work. If they can get work and fly in, fly out, a lot of people want to fly in, fly out, they will. We need jobs which are diverse. We need a range of jobs, and they will be low paying, they'll be high paying. But we need to work and knock on doors and make it happen. But I congratulate you for going up and talking and getting advice.
Thank you.
Eric, if I could just touch on a few major points in relation to the meeting. The meeting took pretty well close to 5 hours. It was a long meeting and a lot of issues were discussed, and I made copious notes, but I just want to touch on a couple of things that stood out for me. The council has a future fund, a specific account, specific to the future and jobs and growth and training and the like, similar to the issues raised by both Councillor Coleman and Councillor Ring. That sits pretty well specific and only be used for the future. They've also got an external economic development group. I found that interesting as well. Their council, of course, votes on the final outcomes of those, but it's an external economic development group. They're facing in the short term, I think 2025, I think they said, 900 jobs lost with the closure of the Liddell Power Station and associated mines. But importantly and worse as well is they're saying about 300 jobs in total with the flow-on effects of jobs associated with both of those industries. And that's the point of view I've been trying to get through here for some years when we lost Wallerawang and Angus Place. It wasn't just a loss of those two, it was a flow-on effect to all of our industries and all of our businesses within all of our local government area. Yeah, they're looking at pumped hydro into the future, but it will require state and private funding. And I heard just coming back from that meeting that there's something like, state government's looking like something like $40 million being put into that area for the issue of pumped hydro. So, that's, Muswellbrook can't do it all on their own. They've got to, that's quite clear, and the Mayor made it very plain that they're knocking on political doors all the time, and a political path to follow. They're pushing for permanent skill-based jobs and major projects all the time. Jobs are their main focus. That was clear throughout the whole 5 hours of the conversation. And they're chasing grant funding for job creation at any level, everywhere, federal, state, any chance they get. And they do have special rate levels for coal mining and power generation. And I understand, and I stand corrected by the General Manager, but that's one of the aspects that we'll be engaging with their staff with very clearly in relation to how they organise their rates. Their rate income certainly from those two major industries. So all in all, I think it was very successful, and I look forward to hosting them here, certainly, hopefully in the near future.
Thanks, Councillor McAndrew. Councillor Leslie?
Just a question to Mr. Gurney, if I may. Hasn't Lithgow Council already set up a process by which which coal mines and that would be charged rates at a different rate than we're currently doing? I thought we had that process in hand.
through you, Mr. Mayor, we did initiate a rating subcategory for power stations.
Coal mines have always been rated fairly highly, a lot higher than power stations. Power stations were virtually getting off scot-free for a long, long time. Okay, if there's no more conversation on that, I shall put that in middle minute. Those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimous. 8.2, Merrill Minute, Lithgow Aged Care. Since the announcement in February that Lithgow Aged Care would not be able to operate as an accredited aged care provider beyond April 2021, Council has been working tirelessly making representations to our local federal member, the Commonwealth Department of Health, the Australian Aged Care Quality Agency and the Lithgow Aged Care Board, seeking to achieve very different outcomes. During this time, the primary objective of Council has always been to ensure the ongoing safety and well-being of the residents, that Lithgow Aged Care residents remain housed close to the established support networks in Lithgow, and that Lithgow Aged Care employees retain their jobs and entitlements. In February 2021, Council was advised by the Australian Government that the decision to not renew Lithgow Aged Care's accreditation was made on the basis of 38 non-compliances out of 42 conditions. This decision was obviously going to impact a significant number of our community members, including the 70 plus residents and their families, the staff and their families, and the long-term future of Lithgow. Council General Manager initially wrote to the Chair and CEO of Lithgow Aged Care to encourage a strategy beyond the appeal of the decision. Council also commenced advocating for Lithgow Aged Care with representatives of the Honourable Andrew GMP, Senator Tony Sheldon and representatives of the Commonwealth Department of Health. Thankfully, on the 16th of April 2021, it was announced that the long-term future of Lithgow Aged Care facility had been secured, with the ownership being transferred to Respect, a not-for-profit aged care provider with aged care homes in New South Wales, Victoria and Tasmania. With the transfer of the ownership to Respect, all existing residents and staff will remain in place as the transfer occurs. I am confident that Respect understands the challenges LAC has faced, and by taking ownership and responsibility, Respect will use their expertise to maintain and improve their facility. Already the new owners are making changes with significant improvements made to maintain fulfilled accreditation and rectify all non-compliant requirements. Once the facility is compliant and full accreditation is achieved, Respect have given undertakings to develop the site, expanding the number of rooms as well as construction of a specialist dementia care unit. Council General Manager has reached out to the new owners to thank them for their investment in the city and to offer a working relationship. I'm personally thrilled with this very favourable outcome and appreciative of the support provided by the Honourable Andrew G, Senator Tony Sheldon and Commonwealth Department of Health. On behalf of Lithgow Council and the entire Lithgow community, I wish the new owner a long and flourished future in Lithgow. I also thank the residents, staff and their families for having the faith in our city. I am very pleased with the role that Council played in achieving this outcome. It demonstrates what can be achieved when levels of government work together in the best interest of this city. The recommendation is that the Council note the wonderful outcome and convey our appreciation on behalf of the city. Thank you. Commentary, councillors?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. It's very disappointing that this Merrill Minute came at, I received and read it at 10 minutes to 7 when I came into this room. This information has been in the public domain for at least a week, and I would have thought that we should have had it earlier. As a result, I would have liked to have prepared a full statement about this, but I'll do my best in the short time I've had to just hear what you've said and consider the issues. But basically, Lithgow residents were screwed. And it was extremely lucky, in my mind, extremely lucky that the facility ended up with Respect, a reputable, community-focused provider. Now, it was a near-run thing, that it didn't end up with a billionaire for-profit company. After all, this was the recommendation that was given to the Department of Health by their consultants. Lithgow Aged Care should have remained in local hands. We should have honoured the people who built it, the power station workers who gave money, on a fortnightly basis from their pay for many years to do it, the people who ran the cake stalls, to provide money so that the facility could be built at the time, the local business people who supplied, enormous amounts of money to make this both Cooinda and Tandera work, and Lithgow Council itself who supplied the land and support and ensured that the buildings were done with support from the council's staff to get this right. One of the things I will say is that at no stage were the residents of Lithgow Aged Care in their health and their quality of life was never in doubt. That was something that every aged care commission audit determined. There was certainly the standards failed, 38 of the 42. Well, isn't that interesting that when the facility was put into sanctions, Lithgow Aged Care, the board, not just the last board, but earlier boards, were required to provide an administrator and consultants at great expense. These administrators and consultants had to be approved by the Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission. So they were commission approved consultants. Well, how good a job did they do? At the end of this whole process, these consultants left a facility where 38 of the 42 standards were not met. I don't think that's something that the Aged Care Commission can be proud of. And I don't believe that the board, either the last one or the earlier boards, could do anything about that. They were stymied by the support they were not getting. The Aged Care Commission they're very good as policemen. They can come in, they can certainly make sure that standards are being met. But where was the advice? Where was the help? Where was the monitoring? Where was the mentoring?
Councillor, I think that you've had a fair run at that. We're here to say that Lithgow Aged Care is in new hands, it's in respect, and going back over what you're going over is immaterial now. Lithgow Aged Care is now in new hands, and I can't see you going back over old water that is going to reflect anything on what's happened now. So,
thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's very disappointing that you choose to do that. All I'm saying is that the people of Lithgow were screwed, and we should honour them for the work they did in building that facility, and we should thank the staff who, under enormous difficulties, maintained their support and their loyalty. It was something that was incredible to watch, and it was very, very disappointing to me, and I think it was extremely disappointing that the facility was not able to remain, as it should have, in community hands, local community hands.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Anybody else?
Yeah, Mayor, if I could, look, I thank you for your mayoral minute. I think it's quite well done. In fact, and it acknowledges and thanks rightfully those people who were involved. And I go to these 3 dot points on page 1. I want to read them out again. During this time, the primary objective of council has always been to 1, ensure the ongoing safety and well-being of the residents. We did that. 2, that Lithgow aged care residents remain housed close to their established support networks in Lithgow. We achieved that. And that the Lithgow aged care employees retain their jobs and entitlements, which we achieved as well. I think it's a great outcome. Look, at one stage I thought we'd reach that D-Day of the 16th of April and we wouldn't have someone to come in and take it over. I honestly believe we got very, very close to that occurring. That was the worst possible outcome that could have occurred. I think this is a great outcome, and I look forward to seeing Lithgow Aged Care to continue on, to move into their new areas and continue to provide a good facility for our older residents. Look, I said at the time, and I say again now, if we had have lost it, we ended up with just 2 remaining aged care facilities within our local government area, at Portland and at Lithgow. Nowhere near big enough to take our ageing population. So this has been a great outcome, a great win, and I want to personally thank you and congratulate you and the GM, because I know during this period the phone never stopped, either by you or the GM talking to the people that mattered, trying to make sure we got a successful outcome in relation to this issue. So I'm happy that we still have Lithgow Aged Care there and to operate into the future.
Councillor Ring.
Mayor Thompson, I don't agree with anything the council as we said, but I'm not going to debate it here. You're right. The outcome is the best for the community. The aged care facility is surviving. It will move into the future, and with any luck, it will grow. The administrators appointed by the government, Ernst Young, had a long association with the home. When I was on the board, March 2020, we provided significant funding from the government to keep the home open. Without it, March 2020, the home would have been put in receivership. Ernst Young have had a long involvement. They're aware of all the issues, including the staff underpayments. They've read all the reports, and this is why they came in as, I believe, the administrators. They got a good outcome, and I'm excited for the staff who are happy. And I know a lot of staff still there stayed because they did not want to leave the residents. And I believe that the facility will grow. It will grow into the future and continue to serve this community. I'd also like to point out the community boards face the same level of regulation under the Corporations Act that the BHP does. And the world has changed from what it was 50 years ago. It is a complex world, and you have to be fully aware of your governance roles and the legislation. It is complex. So kudos to Respect for coming in. I look forward to them serving this community for a long time.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Any others? I shall put that then. Those in favour? Against? Councillor Leslie against. We move to item 9.1, notice of motion. Councillor Ring. Have I got a seconder?
Happy to second.
Mayor Thompson, I do have an additional point which I've sent through to Trinity and Negrita, and I'll read that out. It is that Lithgow Council actively engage with the private sector to promote Lithgow as a viable location for an electric bus manufacturing facility and other advanced manufacturing industries.
You happy with that, Councillor McCann?
I'd be happier if it's private sector and government.
Well, I'm happy to change it so it's private sector and government.
Private sector and government, because that's the only way it's going to go.
Yeah, no, I'm not getting rid of the first one. I'm just adding this as an additional point.
Like I said, I'm happy with the additional point with that government added to it.
Okay, look, I'm happy with that to go into that.
Okay.
Okay.
Right, Councillor Ring.
This was raised with me late last week by a number of members of the community. I spoke to the Mayor on his return from Muswellbrook on Thursday, and I put this together quickly so that I could make this meeting. I have had a couple of discussions since having put it in with our local member, Paul Toole. This is not about retrofitting buses. This is about building a new fleet in New South Wales. And I'm aware that there's already a company down in Barrow investing several $1 million in upgrading the facility. We need to be engaging with the private industry to sell Lithgow as a viable location for manufacturing, not just for buses, but for advanced technologies. We've got a lot going for ourselves. we need to be pushing ourselves to the industries and selling Lithgow and getting them to come in. We also need to be knocking on the doors of the ministers and the government and engaging with them so we understand what's coming forward in the future, what changes are coming. This is critical in moving forward. We need to be actively engaged with both the government and the private sector. We need to look at opportunities. Green spot is something that we should be, as a council, behind 100%. The types of industries that we can attract to this community and the growth attached to that, to me, is mind-boggling. We really need to work hard as a council to go down that path. That's all I've got to say, Mayor Thompson.
Councillor Kendrick.
And very happy, Mayor, to second and support it. I want to make a couple of comments in relation to it. And I know Councillor Ring made the comment that people had approached him, and I know that the Chamber, I think, recently had a media release in relation to it as well and picked up on it, which is great. And I've reread the press release by Barry Calvert, and he certainly talks about not just buses, but any opportunity that Lithgow has, being on the doorstep of Sydney, to provide those types of jobs for the wider Sydney area. And can I say as well, though, it shows once again the good decision, the smart decision we took in becoming a member of Westrock and the value in that. Now, this press release didn't happen by accident. This press release followed, Mayor, as you'd recall, after a meeting that we had here in Lithgow earlier in the year between Barry Calvert and Westrock CEO Charles Casascelli to talk specifically about this, to ask them for their support in trying to get some opportunities for job creation in our local government area. So it's not a fluke that this press release come out. It's as a result of that good meeting we had earlier in the year. And you know, Mayor, that we're continuing to meet with, talk to both Barry Calvert and the CEO Charles Casascelli on every time we can in relation to try and promote our area and promote jobs.
Thank you, Councillor Kendrick. Any other commentary, Councillor Coleman?
Yes, I also support the notice of motion. The Lithgow community expects us to advocate for any manufacturing opportunities, and it touches on what you said in your mayoral minute. We need to diversify our economy. It's so important going into the future.
There's no other commentary, councillors. I shall put that. Those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimous. Notice of motion, Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor Thompson.
Have I got a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Goodsall. Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor Thompson. I just want to start with the management's comment, because in the management comment it states appears and understood. So I want to get some clarification in regards to that comment. Can I confirm if any staff have actually spoken to the Blue Mountain Council, City Council? Can I confirm that Blue Mountains Council has a tourism licensing scheme? And can I confirm if that in the Blue Mountains that commercial operators are actually charged application and license fees? As I said, the reason for my questions is the language in the management comment is an ecotourism licensing scheme appears. It is understood. So did anybody actually speak to the Blue Mountains Council? Is there actually definite answer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's on their website. The details are on their website. That was the research that was done.
Okay.
And yes, there are. It outlines what their ecotourism licensing scheme is, and that's just to summarise there. And there is licensing and annual fees as well, and it's on a scale depending on the type of activity it appears to be. But it was a very cursory piece of research to try and assist in understanding what it means.
Thank you. I just want to come back to my notice of motion. The recommendation, firstly, is regarding the Council's Environmental Advisory Committee, and the wider committee have provided with adequate time to comment. I attended the Environmental Advisory Committee a week or two ago, and they were very, very upset in regards to the lack of consultation, the lack of information, and the opportunity to actually consult on this particular issue, the Hassans Wall Mountain Bike Trail tragedy. So it's strategy, sorry, not tragedy, strategy. Sorry, that's slip of the word there. So it's really important that we get adequate wide community comment. It's really important. The other part of my recommendation is regards to ecotourism licensing. It's to investigate the option. All we need is to investigate the option, and once it's come back as a report, then we can go further from there.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Goodsall.
I've just got a couple of questions for Councillor Coleman, if that's okay.
Yes, that's fine.
What is an ecotourism licensing scheme? That's my first question.
Basically, it looks at the opportunity to, charge those who want to be, like it's commercial operators. So we charge that if they, for example, Hassans Falls Road, if they want to use Hassans Falls Road, we charge them a licensing fee. It's about economics.
Okay, so can I ask another question? So what gaps or problems have you identified regarding our current lease agreements for operators that operate on council managed land, say for Lake Lyell? What sort of impact would it have on them?
Well, that's why I want them to investigate it and bring a report back. I'm not an expert on this. I want the council to investigate the introduction of an ecotourism licensing scheme. If we think it's good for us, then we adopt it. If we don't, we don't. It's basically, I want them to investigate the option.
Can I ask administration a question to you?
Certainly can.
So can I ask then how council currently manage commercial-based recreation activities within its reserves? So say something like Lake Lyell has a lease agreement. What sort of impact would an ecotourism scheme have on existing operators?
It's a good question. I don't know that it would. I think what we're talking about here are reserves, which would be distinct from, for example, for Lake Lyell, which is not a reserve, and also Crown reserves managed by council as well, which is probably the second part of it. So in relation to, and once again, I'm going to talk about what I understand from some cursory research. I mean, I understand in the Blue Mountains certainly there are a number of commercial operators. I understand in terms of such things as abseiling and rock climbing, and they also talk about horse riding in their documentation, that they are, if they're happening in those reserves, that they are able to charge a licence fee and an ongoing fee for that activity. I'm not aware really of any current operators, commercial operators in our area that would apply to or affect. But once again, that might take some research.
Anything else, Councillor Goodsall?
I just probably don't understand why it would impact on the mountain bike strategy if there's not commercial operators in that strategy. That's what I sort of don't understand.
Mr. Muir.
Well, it's a good question. I suppose probably there is one approved official trail at Hassans Falls at the moment, which is not run, in my understanding, by a commercial entity. But I suppose if you extrapolate that, and if the strategy gets the okay from council to proceed, and down the track, if there was to be construction and perhaps commercial entities operating such a thing, then perhaps it will be relevant, yes.
Any councillors, any other? Councillor Ring?
Mayor Thompson, ecotourism is a licensing, not just to make money. It's done extensively in national parks have a very good eco-licensing program. It doesn't just cover going on to bushland. It covers going into historic sites, S-Bank House, that sort of thing. It's about regulating the use and not allowing overdevelopment and ensuring that the correct thing is done. Particularly in areas, as you said, up in the Blue Mountains, as Mr Muir said, we've got abseiling, rock climbing, there are a lot of safety issues. I have no problem with looking at a broad commercial licensing program which could encompass photographers, commercial photographers, wedding photographers, as well as tours for Esteban cows. I do have individuals, small private businesses, done work with council before. They haven't. I'm not going to go into detail in open council, but I will be meeting with Mr. Muir to discuss it. It's not a money grab. It's more to regulate large numbers. We don't, I believe, have large numbers of people operating within our reserves. In fact, I've asked at the last Environment Committee if we could get advice on what bushlands we actually manage. What is the size of our bushland reserve? I think a report coming back would be good, but I think it needs to be broad to look at all the aspects. Is it worth doing? It's not enough just to have an eco-tourism program put in, we're going to licence people. Because unless you've got the staff and the resources to go out and police it, it is a waste of time. And that was the response of the industry in the Blue Mountains when National Parks started doing this years ago. You had people doing the right thing, paying the money, and then you had rogue operators coming in and no one was out there stopping them. So we need to look at the pros and cons. It's not just about, oh, we could get money. What's at risk? Do we have any reserves that are at significant risk of overuse or overdevelopment? Is anyone doing rock climbing on our reserves? And is the cost of enforcing those licences more than the licence fee itself? These are things we need to consider. But I trust the administration and bringing back a report will consider all aspects. Thank you.
Mayor, could I...
Councillor McKendry.
Yeah, just make a couple of comments and ask a couple of questions. Look, the motion has merit. If I'm reading the management comments, part one of the recommendations being satisfied, because the management comment is extension of kind of comment in the draft Hassan Wall's mountain bike strategy is reasonable, so I take it that means yes. I'm just questioning whether Friday, May the 7th will allow enough time for that, but I'll be guided by Councillor Coleman. And I also am I'm a little bit confused with the management comment in relation to the ecotourism licensing scheme. If I'm reading it as well, I think it seems to support it, but I'm not that sure. Bearing in mind, of course, that the recommendation has only asked for a investigative report to come back for council. So I support it, but I'm just questioning whether the May the 7th is long enough. I don't know about other councillors, but I've received 2 emails opposing the mountain bike strategy at Hassan's Walls, and I did ask questions before. The other concern I've got is that we're trying to do a plan of management for Hassan's Walls itself, and I'm just wondering how we manage all that when we're trying to do that. We're still, I know later in the paper there's an article, an item on that decision we took some months ago regarding access, egress and ingress up and to in and out of the area. So I'm just wondering how it all ties together, and of course, as I said, whether the mountain bike strategy timeline is a bit tight to allow people to have a comment.
Thank you, Councillor McKendry. Any other commentary? Right, a reply, Councillor Coleman.
Just touching on the date, May the 7th, I don't believe that is enough time. I think it should be extended until at least May the 14th. At least give them some little bit of leeway, so the middle of May. So I'd like to change that, if I may, Mayor Thompson, in regards to that, if everybody's happy with that. But otherwise, yeah, I'm happy for only that change to go ahead.
You happy with the change, Councillor Goodsall? Sure. Yep.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's all.
If there's no other commentary then, I shall put it. Thank you. Councillor Ring, are you voting? Oh, thank you. Proposed licence fee agreement with Wallerawang Indoor Sports Association.
Happy to,
Move it?
yeah. But I'd like to defer it. I'm not sure how I should have said
Right,
that.
got a second
Sorry.
at the moment. Right, Councillor Goodsall and Councillor Ring. Now, Councillor Goodsall.
Mayor Thompson, I'd like to move to defer this item based on information that Council has received this afternoon, which potentially implicates Council. We received representations from Lithgow District Netball Association, and there were many issues raised, a very long and lengthy email, but specifically concerning council was the alleged unlawful use, some alleged building concerns and WHS concerns. And I think that all these impact on council, and I think that we should investigate before a lease is put.
A complete change of the recommendation. Councillor Ring, you happy to second that?
Yeah, I need to take the third. We need, based on what's gone through, we need clarification of the case.
So do you want to speak to it, Councillor Ring?
Yes, Mayor Thompson, sorry, look, just briefly, I concur with what Councillor Goodson said. I think most councillors agree. We've had issues that have been raised, that raise concerns. They need to be dealt with, and possibly the licence agreement needs to be reviewed with some sort of appropriate mechanism for dispute resolution. I'm not sure. But I think we need to resolve these issues before signing off on any agreement.
Any other? Councillor Smith.
I'd like to add a third point, if I could, to Councillor Goodsall's. I just want to add that the fact that I'd like to see a meeting called between the management of the Wang Indoor Sports Committee, the Lithgow Netball Association, the council, and you and the Deputy Mayor involved in this to really come back with a very good report on what's going on out there. I'm like everybody else. We've all got a very detailed letter today from Lithgow Netball, and there was a lot of stuff that's not good in that. So I'd like the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor involved with the General Manager and both the Wang Indoor Sports Association Committee and the Lithgow Netball and whoever else uses it. We need all parties involved in this to really sort this out. This came up at the Sports Advisory meeting last week. It was also, I've spoken to people after that since then, and they said it's not a good look.
So we've got a motion to say it be deferred. Yes. Point one, and the second one is that a meeting be called with all stakeholders.
Parties, including yourself, the Deputy Mayor and the General Manager.
Okay. You happy with that, Councillor Goodall? Councillor Ring?
Yeah, more than that.
Okay, I shall put that then. Those in favour? Carried unanimous. Yes. They'll let Chambers up, doesn't it?
Mayor Thompson, I'd like to move 10.12 if I could.
Happy to second.
Yep. Moved Councillor Ring, seconded Councillor Goodsall. Councillor Ring.
I don't have a lot to say. This is a good report. This is a good outcome. This clearly, to me, demonstrates that the gateway process works. There's lots of criticism of our planning department and our staff, but our staff work within a very convoluted and complex planning framework and legislation, and this is good to see. This is a good outcome. It's a good outcome for the community. And what I particularly like in the report is the staff are not only saying that they're going to meet the deadline, which is August sometime, but they're hopefully going to improve that deadline. Because on reflection, from the date the gateway proposal was endorsed by the department, there's 9 months to complete the process. And I think it's a credit to the staff to actually have got it to this far and done a good job on it.
Thank you. Councillor Goodsall.
No, just to mention that there were 5 submissions received and none of them raised any objections. So.
Yeah. All government departments. Yeah. Any other commentary, councillors? I shall put that then. Those in favour? Yeah, carried. And noted that Councillor Coleman and Smith left the room.
Just need to get 2 councillors back in there. Michael, can you just get the councillors, please?
Okay, councillors, 10.1.3.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
Who moved? Councillor Goodsall. Second, Councillor Ring. Councillor Goodsall.
Yes, Mr Mayor, it was interesting to hear at our last information session that the state government have been planning the implementation of a standardised DCP to hand down a template which may or may not be relevant to our local government area. It's now 2021 and our staff have been proactive in implementing this DCP, which includes all planning and development types. I think it will add specific guidelines and information up front, no doubt streamline the application process significantly. So when possibly the state government does hand down its template, we'll be one step in front, saying that we've already developed ours in consultation with our community. This will go out on draft exhibition and come back to council for debate.
Thank you. Councillor Ring?
Mayor Thompson, the term development control plan is in fact very misleading. Development control plan has no statutory authority. It is a set of guidelines and it is a starting point for any developer looking at constructing or doing work within our community. When you look at the document, it's quite a large document. There's a hell of a lot of work in that. And a lot of it is visual. But in working out what is appropriate or inappropriate for this community takes a lot of time and consideration. And there's been a lot of work. I've badgered Mr Muir on the development control plan ever since I've got on council. I've reviewed the heritage component of it through the Heritage Committee. And I've developed something similar when I was at Hartley. This provides a developer with, this is not acceptable, this is. It's a starting point. And when a developer has an idea or a plan or a vision which is outside of the guidelines, it provides them a base on which to come to council and say, I know it's outside the guidelines, but this is why I think it's good. It will improve the overall planning position of this council. I think it's a good document, what I've seen of it. I mean, it's over 300 pages, so obviously I haven't read a lot of it, but I have skimmed through and I think there's enough in there that most people will get benefit of it. And having said it's a 300-page document, any individual proposing development here does not have to read the entire document. There's an administrative section, and you only go to the sections that relate to what you're doing. The other thing, is there's finally a new signage policy or guidelines. And signage pollution can be a major detriment to any environment. I think it's a good document. I think it deserves to go out and get public commentary. It will be a living document that will change over time. But it is a credit to the council staff who have organised and put it together.
Thank you. Councillor Leslie?
Just wondering if I get some clarification on point 1 of the recommendation. When is it starting and when is it finishing?
It really depends on the staff. If the tonight goes through, we would hope that we would hopefully could start probably Friday to coincide with the Village Voice. That would be our intent if we can get there.
Mayor Thompson?
Yes.
If I may? I also have a question in regards to the recommendation point 2. It says authorise the general manager to make any minor amendments and formatting it to the preliminary draft Lithgow Development Control Plan. What is considered minor amendments? Through you,
Mr Mayor?
what would be considered minor?
It's really some basic wording, punctuation, formatting. The final document was in the process of being finalised. There was a staff workshop on the same day that the councillors received their briefing last Monday, and very, very minor things, nothing substantial.
Yeah, just a comment and question, if I may. I note Councillor Ring has already outlined that the DCP is simply a set of guidelines providing guidance, not a statutory requirement. I support the report. It does comment again about the Lithgow Local Environment Plan 2014. I make the point that that's now out of date. It was supposed to be reviewed in 2019. I'm just wondering where that is all up to.
Mr Mayor?
The LEP review, which there are 2 elements in terms of the housekeeping LEP. that was in our information session last week. There were some information given. I probably just have to take that on notice as to, there has been a delay, but I have to just take that on notice to give some more information as to when that is. Basically, there's a significant workload on some important planning documents at the moment. The DCP was one of them. Once that gets started, then the staff can get cracking on some other things, and I can provide some further information about that.
That would be good if we could. We're into 2021 now. This is, as I said, it was supposed to be formally reviewed in 2019, and we still haven't got there.
I've just got a question too from Mr Muir. The DCP applies to all lands within the Lithgow government area except for the foundations, the Pottery Estate and Marangaroo. Now, I asked that question at the information session and I got the answer, which is fine, but why not Wallerawang in the repurposing of Wallerawang? Have they got to put in their own DCP?
Page, so Mr. Mayor? No, it covers Wallerawang.
Page 18.
Page 18.
Halfway down where it says...
Yeah, there's only 3 applicable areas, which is the foundations, the Pottery Estate and Marangaroo, which will require site-specific DCPs called up in the LEP. But it would include at this stage Wallerawang. Yes.
So they'd have to put in their own?
No, it includes Wallerawang.
It includes Wallerawang.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Could I ask a question?
Yeah.
At the briefing session, the additional DCPs that have been done for Pottery Estate and in other areas will be added to this document once they're completed as additional chapters.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, right a reply, Councillor Goodsall. Okay, I shall put that then, councillors. Those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimous. 10.1.4, request to transfer land to State of New South Wales. That looks pretty straightforward.
Mayor, happy to move it. Second it.
Councillor McAndrew.
Yeah. Happy to move it, Mayor.
Seconded, Councillor Goodsall. Councillor McAndrew.
Yeah, look, it's pretty, well, seems to be pretty straightforward. In fact, the report states on page 22 that an inspection of council minute books of 1973 and 75 verifies that council did intend to surrender the 6 lots to the department back then. A copy of the relevant minutes are attached to this report with pertinent parts highlighted. So, you know, we've indicated some time ago, and it's taken Crown Lands this time to sort this out. And I note at the top of page 23 that although the 6 lots classified community land, generally council has no authority to transfer, but under section 45.4 Local Government Act we do. So it seems that everything's been cleared in relation to the legal aspects. The only question I have again is, do any of the lots, 1, 2, 3, 90, 1, 2, do any of the lots impact on our Hassans Walls management plan?
Not to my knowledge. I did have a look at the mapping, Councillor McAndrew, and it all seems to be on the far side, virtually going up to Bracey's Lookout from Shooty Scully. So all the lots seem to be on that far side. Nothing to do with Hassans Walls Road or the Pony Club or vice versa. So they're all on the...
Yeah, the management plan covers a wide area, so
yeah.
I'm just making sure that the money...
It is in the Hassans Walls Reserve, though. They're all in the Hassans Walls Reserve, all the lots.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What were these lots originally? Were they houses? Were they mining leases? What were they? I mean,
Don't know.
no.
All I know is now that Councillor Leslie Bush.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's fine. I mean, my father was there at the time. I mean, that's how old it is. He's been dead 15 years. But the other question is this overall a benefit to Lithgow Council that we're doing this, or is it just housekeeping?
To my knowledge, it's just housekeeping, but I'll throw that over to Mr. Muir.
It's an interesting question. Really, in finality, one could argue that it's a benefit that the council doesn't have, land assets that it is responsible for maintaining, etc., etc. having said that, as Crown Land managers, the council takes up that responsibility in any event. So it's really just housekeeping.
I shall put that then, councillors. Those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimous. 10.1.5, future use.
Happy to second.
Moved Councillor McAndrew, seconded Councillor Smith. Councillor McAndrew.
Yeah, Mayor, the recommendation's sensible. I think it's a good decision, defer the decision to give the Clarence Dargan Community Association more time to have a look at their options. And certainly, if they're successful with an application for grant funding, I think, you know, it's been sitting there for some time, a little bit longer, won't create any problems for us.
Councillor Smith? No? Any other commentary? Councillor Coleman?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Thompson. Look, I'd like to see council be actively involved in seeking the funding, working very closely with the community, and I do not want to see infrastructure sold in the purpose of building infrastructure. We need to try and preserve this as much as possible, but yeah, I believe that working with the community, giving them a little bit more time will be beneficial.
Councillor Goodsall?
It's very obvious that the Clarence Dargan Community Association have done their homework, and if their plans for this community space come to fruition, it will be remarkable and invaluable for the community, and I wish them every success in their grant funding. And council's deferral of this matter gives them the opportunity to seek funding, and obviously that means council understands the community's needs.
Thank you. Any other commentary, councillors? Councillor McAndrew, right away.
Yeah, just very briefly in response to Councillor Coleman, we still assist groups with grant funding applications, I understand. We've done it for a number, so there's no reason why this can't occur with this group. I understand that's still ongoing.
As far as I understand, it is, yes.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, that's all I've got.
Okay, shall put that, councillors. Those in favour? Carried unanimous. We do have a late report, councillors, 10.1.6. Have you got that?
Happy to move as it is.
Happy to second.
That's a call-in matter that's sent out as a menu?
Yeah.
No.
No, the site meeting at 14 Claret Ash.
Yeah, no, I've got it now. So many coming in late.
Do you need any information, explanation before somebody moves?
Good.
Okay, Mr. Muir.
This refers to item 10.1.6, which is the modification application in relation to earthworks, where we did have a site inspection at 2 locations following the council's resolution at its last meeting. The first part of the site meeting was at the end of Munbinga Drive, where we met with the proponent and a number of residents there. I think it's fair to say that the residents there seemed to be quite satisfied in relation to what was going to occur, and that no objections were raised. We then proceeded to another location closer to the Great Western Highway, where there has been a long-standing, ongoing drainage issue, and which we looked at, and we I suppose received some representations from a couple of parties there. That particular site in itself is separated from where this modification application is situated, so it doesn't really have any relevance. We have since had some discussions with the assistance of Mr. Edgecombe, looking at some of the flooding information, going through that intervening land and historic information, and I suppose put simply, it does appear to be a natural flow path that does flood, and consequently there's not a lot we can do about that. The developer has put in detention basin, which is sized to a greater capacity that what would be required. That appears to be doing its job in that respect. Mr Edgecombe is also going to help us and have some discussions with Transport for New South Wales down, I suppose, the bottom end of where it reaches the Great Western Highway to see if there might be any options for some additional drainage to relieve what appears to be a point where that water does build up. I suppose we're not sure how that'll pan out, but we put that separately to this modification application, which must be treated on its own merits and its own distinct site, and we recommend it for approval accordingly.
Somebody like to move? Move, Councillor Goodsall. Seconded, Councillor Ring. Councillor Goodsall?
No, I don't think I've got too much to say, Mr Mayor. It's very obvious that the late submission that we received, while it had merit, it didn't have anything to do with this modification, which only came to us because it's now impacting on council land. So it's important for this DA to keep going and for the developer to keep preparing his site.
Councillor Ring?
Look, I had no problem with the original report, the author of the original report. I had high regard for him. He no longer works for council. He's moved on, unfortunately. However, it was council's decision to do a site inspection, which I respect. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend on the day due to unforeseen circumstances. I think the outcome of the report speaks for itself. It is a good outcome. Some of the concerns raised by residents are being looked at by the administration. I think it's a good outcome. We need this to move forward.
Thank you. And councillors? Councillor?
Yeah, I also attended the meeting that talked about the DA, and I'm satisfied that the DA won't significantly impact on the community out the other side. I did go to the other side of where the modifications that don't include this DA modification. I don't accept that the water issues on the opposite side are not part of this DA, are solely stormwater problems. There is a natural water course there. I have had phone calls with other family members that have lived there for over 50 years. And they still say that since a dam was removed, the water problem by the proponent, the water problems have significantly got worse. But I guess that it's not. This doesn't impact the actual DAs, where it says in the motion that it's, excuse me just for a second, the stormwater is a natural occurrence based upon the information and findings. Yes, I can see that it is a naturally occurring area, but from the information gained from all of the family members that have been there for a very long time, they say that the dam that was there was not always a full dam. It was a spring. There was a spring near that dam, but it was below that dam, not at that dam. And when it rained, that dam filled up, stopping all of that water. So I can only say yes, I'll accept the recommendation, but I don't accept that that's solely the water on the other side is solely.
I do believe that the site inspection was worthwhile because, well, I do believe that there has been some collaboration now between the developer and the main residents that were being affected by water. So it was a good outcome by all.
Thanks, Mayor. And I was going to ask that specific question because I understood that there's no doubt on the second, I was at the site visit as well, no doubt the second part of that meeting, there's one applicant, sort of one family majorly affected, and I had heard that there'd been some conversation between that specific family and the applicant, so that's good to hear. Yes, there wasn't much raised at the first one, but what was clearly stated was that opportunity for those people will come when a formal DA for building occurs in that area. There's not a great deal of work being undertaken over there. Councillor Goodwin's right. The major impact has been in the second part of the site inspection. But look, I think the report answers all the matters. We really don't have much choice.
Yep. Right to reply, Councillor Goodson.
I don't think it's that we haven't got any choice. I think that this recommendation is coming back to us from the last council meeting, and clearly any submissions that were received had absolutely nothing to do with the development application that's happening at the top of Mundinga Drive. And I'd just like to also say, I think since that meeting, the developer has again gone above and beyond to install possibly, I think, some more drainage to try and alleviate those concerns, which are a totally separate matter to this item that we're talking about now.
Thank you. Okay, so put it, councillors. Those in favour? Declare that carried. Thank you. Uh, 10.2.1, fee waiver request for Lithgow Football Association, hire of Marjorie Jackson Oval. Somebody like to move?
Sure.
Move, Councillor Goodsall.
Yeah, I'll second.
Seconded, Councillor Ring. Councillor Goodsall.
I support the recommendation as it stands, and I'm sympathetic and I understand the hardships of all community groups during COVID and after COVID, but I note in the report it says that other councils have waived fees for sporting organisations right through their community. Lithgow City Council aren't other councils. Other councils may have the privilege of a stronger financial position or a surplus of money or maintenance. If we do choose to waive the fee, I agree with the recommendation that we have little choice but not to spend money maintaining this facility. But the big swayer for me to not support the Lithgow District Football Association is that there's no data. I can't see any evidence. I can see words that represent that they're having financial difficulties, but I cannot see, we've just got to take that on face value and believe that organisation that they're struggling, and I can't consider this request from them without financials.
Thank you. Councillor Ring.
If we were to support this request from this group, then it sets a precedent where any group in the community would come to us. As far as I'm concerned, we'd be required to provide them with the same. I think councils tried to be as fair and as generous as they can during the COVID period. We have limits. We have financial constraints. COVID has also impacted on council. We have, regardless of whether it's through government legislation and requirements, we have cut rents on tenants in properties that the council owns. We have done what we can. I believe we have to be armed on this. If they come back with more evidence or more information, happy to revisit it at the moment on council.
Just a commentary.
As it stands.
Just a commentary before other councillors speak. I recall when the Baggy Blues were here going back some time ago, they made the comment that they've been right through the state and they haven't seen any better sporting fields anywhere in the state, and that came from Councillor Smith, and so I think that Lithgow can be very, very proud of the sporting fields, and I know that Lithgow not Lithgow football, but state football throughout New South Wales come here frequently to play their sport of a Saturday and Sunday. So our sporting fields must be pretty good.
Yeah, Mary, if you may, look, there has been relief given over the last 12 months to all those sporting bodies that requested it. I can't recall whether the soccer people were part of that. I know there was requests from football. I know there were requests from cricket and the like. So that support was given over that period of time. And COVID's not gone away, but certainly the worst of it's behind us. So I'm hoping that things will move forward. And I do agree with Councillor Goodsall. It's not a matter about what other councils have done, it's about what we do. And I don't know what other councillors did with their COVID during the COVID time regarding these requests. And I certainly don't want to see any services reduced by maintenance in relation to any monies that have got to be paid for any specific group that uses our sporting resources. And I'm concerned, and you've been a big one, Mayor, for consistency. If it's given to one, then it has to be given for all, and I don't know what that cost would ever get to.
Thank you. Councillor Goodwin?
Mayor Thompson,
They're not working. One is.
Grab the microphone. Grab it off the podium. Yeah, just stand there.
Mr Mayor, I move we adjourn for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
We don't need
Okay. We're adjourning for 5 minutes. Those in favour? Yep.
All I was going to say is that I know the soccer's taken a significant drop in numbers due to COVID. I was wondering if there's any grants or any that the Football Association can look up for any help at all, grants or anything that we can help them out with or point them in the right direction.
Yeah, look, Councillor, I believe that all sporting bodies are going through exactly the same as Lithgow Football Association is. I think it's up to them to, and Council would certainly help them put in for any grants that they may put in for, but I think it's up to the individual sides themselves to, the same as rugby league or hockey or anything like that. But Council would certainly help them put a grant together.
Mayor Thompson, if I may.
Yeah.
Because I haven't made up my mind yet, I just want to ask a couple of questions. Did this issue come to the Sports Advisory Committee? Do we know did the football club come and discuss it at the Sports Advisory Committee? No? Okay. In the report it states that if the fee is reduced or waived, services may also be reduced and a higher standard of maintenance by our recreation staff may not be able to provide due to the lack of funding and resources. What does that mean in layman terms? Because the total amount is $2,894 that they want waived. In layman terms, how does that actually affect services may be reduced? Like in layman terms, in financial terms, does that really make a big difference to services being waived? And the reason I ask that is that if the District Football Association decide that football isn't to run this year because they can't afford that fee and they don't run football at all, so they're not going to pay fees anyway, what does that mean in regards to the services?
Mr. Hitchcock.
Through you, Mayor Thompson. As many of the councillors would be aware, we have been through a very difficult process in setting a draft budget for next financial year. We need to carefully assess all of the services offered by council and the costs that are associated with them. What we do get in revenue for Tony Lucchetti doesn't come anywhere near what it costs on a yearly basis. However, it does contribute to those costs. So reductions in services, if we weren't to obtain that level of revenue, would be reduced mowing, possibly less frequency in terms of the watering, using irrigation, things like that, the cleaning services that are offered for the Ashley Grandstand, the bird netting that was recently installed. All of that is paid for using council's revenue, which in part comes from the fees paid by our sporting teams and other event holders in the LGA.
Thompson, if I may, but that doesn't actually answer my question. My second part of my question is, if the Lithgow District Football Association decides that they can't afford $2,894 and they decide that the Lithgow District Football Association doesn't run this season, which means that they won't pay that fee, does that directly impact on the services that you've just outlined, Mr. Edgecombe?
Well, Mr Mayor, we're dealing with a hypothetical there, and clearly council would intervene and not allow that to happen. Of course, we're committed to sporting facilities and sporting team and sport. We, as Councillor Goodself said, we've not seen the evidence or the facts to prove that there's a particular hardship. I guess that comment there really also acknowledges that there would be a cumulative impact, because if one was to waive the fee for this sporting group, it would only be fair and reasonable to do the same for all sporting groups across the city, and we don't have the financial capacity for that. That's what the report's speaking to.
question I'd like to ask is, why did they leave the association leave the request till, and the season's been going for 2 or 3 weeks? This is what I can't work out. If they wanted this request, why didn't they put it in before the season started? They tell me the numbers are astronomical down to the juniors. I know Councillor McAndrew's grandkids play, mine play, and but I just can't work out why the request wasn't put in before the season started. So maybe they can answer that for us.
I really don't know whether they thought that they'd have a senior side playing in the Western area at that particular time.
Is this seniors or the whole thing is a lot? Is it juniors,
Well,
seniors, the lot?
it's Lithgow Football Association in general.
So that's the juniors as well?
Yeah.
Can I just get a clarifying question?
Yes.
The fees from this, from Marjorie Jackson, do they also go to Tony Lucchetti, the sports grant? Is that what you're saying, Mr.
No, Mr. Edgecombe made an assumption, made his statement regarding Tony Lucchetti. This is regarding Marjorie Jackson, but the rugby league and so forth pay for the fees for Tony Lucchetti. This is regarding Marjorie Jackson. But the same thing. It's exactly the same. It doesn't matter what fields you're playing on; they've got to be maintained. Yeah.
Now, could I also ask a question that's in response to the comment by the GM? If I understood what the GM's comment in response to Councillor Coleman was, is this anybody gets into a real problem where their sport could be shut down, we'd be sympathetic. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Did I get that right? I'm just wondering whether I should move an amendment that the GM and staff meet with the association and understand their concerns and bring a report back to this council. I'm
happy to second that. Yeah, I'm happy to second that because I'm not in a position to support this. We need to have more of a discussion with the Lithgow District Football Association.
I don't think it would hurt, Mayor, and then council have the right then to make the decision at that time, based on all the facts before them.
Anybody else want to speak to that? And I've got an amendment put up and a seconder. Anybody else want to speak to it?
I'd like to speak to the amendment, Mayor.
To the amendment, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, to the amendment. Looking at it, I get the question about what in reality happens, particularly with the ground rental, but also looking at lighting. There's a $1,280 fee there for lighting. We have to foot the bill for that. There's a flow-on effect. I think if community groups want something, they've got to justify it when they come in. It just can't be, we're having trouble. Well, you're having trouble. And this was an issue, Councillor McAndrew will know that, correct me if I'm wrong, this was an issue with the Portland swimming pool as well. There were meetings with the committee, they had to show books, they had to go through what their problems were. Any group in the community could say, we're having financial difficulty, please waive the fees. We need to be consistent how we approach all these. So I'm not going to support the amendment. I think we need to be hard on it and take it. Doesn't mean they can't come back in the future, but it's really up to them. The ball's in their court.
I've got a significant problem with it as myself as well, because I see that any sporting body could go to the extent and say, well, we've got no money, and then all of a sudden it comes back to council. I have got a real problem with it. But when you have a look at it, you've got lighting, $1,200 virtually for the whole of the football. All the people that are playing football, they've got $1,280 to have to pay. Really, if they don't want to train at night time, it's not a lot of money. Anyway, I've got an amendment. Those in favour of the amendment? Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4. I declare it lost. I think I got that right, didn't I? Yeah. I'm using my casting vote to declare the amendment lost. We now go back to the original motion. Councillor Goodsall, right to reply.
Look, I don't want to seem like I'm being disrespectful or not thoughtful about the Lithgow District Soccer Association, but we've talked about the many ways that this can come back to council in many, many forms. One question question, if I could ask, please, Mr. Mayor, if they couldn't pay that money, and the last thing we want is for that to happen, is there is a payment plan that they could, yeah, so that's not going to happen. That, yeah, we're not going to leave them in that position.
Not at all.
Exactly. Look, okay then, so I shall put the motion now then. Those in favour of the motion?
I'm not sure I understand it now. It's quite clear the council declines the fee waiver reduction request from the Lithgow District Football Association due to the need for councils to recover costs of maintaining Marjorie Jackson Oval. End of story. That's what's being moved.
Yep.
There's no comeback, or that was the reason I put my amendment.
No,
There's no comeback based on that.
there's no comeback based on that, no. Righto, so I shall put it now then. Those in favour of the motion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those against? Councillor Coleman, McAndrew and Goodwin against. Uh, 10.3.1, water,
Move, Mayor.
water and wastewater report. Moved Councillor McAndrew, seconded Councillor Goodwin.
Just briefly, Mayor, I note the number of sequences of health guideline values in the Abbey Park water quality summary, and also the water mains and service issues and sewer mains service issues. There seems to be a lot. I just hope we're getting on top of them all. That's quite a list when one looks at them. You know, pretty well over a short period of time as well. So, as I say, I support the report, but I just note with concern the number of issues that we're having.
Yes, there's quite a list, but we as a council ended up a lot better than a lot of other councils did in the state, I can assure you, during those heavy rains. And Councillor Leslie, sorry, Councillor Leslie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just, I noticed that we get a heavy rainfall, at least Oberon Dam does, about every fourth or fifth year. You know, 2012, 2016, but the one we got in 2020 and late last year, beginning now, was about half the sort of the volume that we're getting earlier. We don't know how much they're going up because they hit the 100%. And in effect, we're only back to where we were in, say, March 2019. If you work back the 46% across the page there. My point is that we need to be vigilant about the water in the local government area. We just don't know when the next drought's coming. If, for example, the one we've had is actually finished, when you get down to, as Oberon did, you know, down to 25%, you do have concerns. So it's very pleasing to see just the water usage that's right down, but that's not necessarily going to stay. When March, for example, we had a lot of rain, but in April, the South Bowen Fells, we've had 2 mils this month, and that's all. And sure, it makes no difference at this stage, but my point is that we do need to just keep an eye on this, and it's great that we get this regular report. And I would be very, you know, just keep watching it. I'm not sure what I'm trying to do here, but just pointing out that, you know, water is precious, and if it's not in your dam, there's not much you can do.
I've been saying that we've had quite a couple of huge breaks in the Oberon Dam pipeline. Huge breaks. Yeah. Okay. Any other commentary?
Mr. Mayor, just to respond to that, yeah, the management is alert to that issue, and it's a good issue. And we look forward. There are a number of actions afoot to shore up the city's water security. And shortly we'll be briefing the council more extensively about those actions.
Thank you.
Mayor Thompson, following on from that, look, I'd just like to say we've had a few breakages, and that's always going to happen. We have ageing infrastructure.
Could I just hold you up there for a sec, Councillor Ring? Councillor Goodwin, you seconded it. Did you want to speak? No, right. Sorry, Councillor Ring.
Sorry, apologies.
Yeah, you're right.
Look, we have ageing infrastructure. We've had a number of breaks. I'd just like to bring to your attention, there was a report in the media a few weeks ago about Sydney Water reducing the pressure significantly in a number of Sydney suburbs because the millions of litres of water that is being leaked through the pipes were not unique. I think our staff are doing the best that they can to manage an ageing infrastructure with the limited resources we have. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, I did see the same report, Councillor Ring, the amount of water that is lost through Sydney Water.
A lot of people complaining about the showers not being up to scratch.
Any other commentary, Councillor? Councillor Conlon?
Thanks, Mayor Thompson. Look, thanks for a detailed and direct report. Mr. Buchan should be congratulated on that. Thank you, Daniel. It states that the council will likely exceed the water access licence. I just want to understand what that actually means. Is that due to the fact that we're looking at possibly a drier winter? I'm not quite sure what that means. Could we get, through you, Mayor, can we get a bit of understanding on what that means?
Mr. Buckins?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. If you have a look at the table contained within the report, the first column draws your attention to the water that we take from Farmers Creek Dam. We only have a licence, so our water access licence only allows us to take 1,500 megalitres a year from Farmers Creek Dam. As you'll see, up until the end of March, we've taken 1,423 megalitres. Given the current operational arrangement where council is providing 100% of the water to the LGA, so we're not utilising any water from Fish River at the Oberon Dam, we will exceed that volume. What that means is, under the water access licence, we have a 3-year rolling average. So you can exceed in any 1 or 2 years, as long as the combined total over a 3-year period doesn't exceed the 4,500. It's just something to be mindful of as far as future planning and how we utilise the resource. So at some point we may need to call upon Fish River to supply more in 1 year into the future, depending on how that sort of plays out.
Just through you, Mayor, if I may. I think it's great too that the water mains and service issues are laid out on page 34. It's really transparent, and congratulations on that as well, Mr. Buchan.
Thank you. Any other commentary? Councillor McAndrew, right to reply?
Yeah, just, there was no indication of any dissatisfaction with staff. I simply noted the report and the hard work that Mr. Buckins and his staff are undertaking. That's simply my intent.
Thank you. I shall put that then, councillors. Those in favour? Thank you. Declared that carried, unanimous. 10.4, sale of land for unpaid rates. Who moved? I'm sorry. Moved, Councillor Ring. And second, and Councillor Smith, was it? Thank you.
Mayor Thompson, this is an administrative procedure. We were fully briefed on this. Councils, on a regular basis, and it's legislated, are able to recoup for the sale of lands unpaid rates. There is a significant amount of money, and I think the sooner we get this done, the better. Thank you.
Councillor Smith?
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Ring. In that amount of money, the council's had a very tight year with money restraints, and this will help our council in the future.
If I could just ask a question, why in the table there's no street addresses? Why is there any reason why you can't have street addresses?
Through you, or to you, Mr. Mayor. Simply for, or mainly for privacy issues, we wouldn't publish that information in an open council report.
Thank you.
Mayor Thompson, if I may?
Yes.
I just have a question. I support the recommendation. This is long overdue, clearly. In the recommendation it states to negotiate by private treaty and accept offers for sale of any property that fails to sell at auction. I just noted note in the table that property 104272, with years of outstanding 15, it's only 95 square metres, so I'm assuming that there'll be a market evaluation for that. Like, I can't see that being sold at auction. It's a very small parcel of land. Can I just get that answered?
Mr. Gurney?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that I don't know the precise particulars of that piece of land, but for example, it may be a landlocked piece of land that may be attractive to an adjoining owner. And from council's perspective, even if it sells for a low amount, we'll then have the rates paid in future years. So that is a benefit.
Councillor Leslie?
Yeah, a couple of questions. What on page 36? What's a road buyer? I mean, can I? What's a road buyer that we have to sort of make sure we don't deal with? I'm just curious that one. I've got a couple of other questions after that. But, yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Road buyers, it's really a technical term. There are apparently, and I'm not a real estate expert myself, of course, but there are apparently ways that people can purchase properties at auction, then organise not to settle on that. So effectively the title doesn't transfer, and they can avoid paying the outstanding rates on the property in that way.
Right, okay. Thank you. The other questions I've got is, of this list of 37, how many were unknown owners? Because the councils will recall, and you, Mr. Mayor, I've asked for details about land around the Lithgow local government area that people don't know the owners of. So does that include some of that land that people don't know who the owners are, or is that report hopefully still to come?
Mr. Gurney?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll have to take that question on notice, but I can send a memo to councillors tomorrow with the number of unknown owners. Usually that may be land that's been, there's been some changes to the lots. So I'll provide more information tomorrow.
For example, the property next to 2 Bells Road, for example, there were questions about whether the council knew who owned it or not. That's just one that's coming up, and certainly some of the land up behind McKellar's Park in that area. But thank you for that. The third question is, we're recommending outstanding collections to be the agents for this. Were outstanding collections chosen after some form of tender process conducted by Lithgow Council?
Mr. Gurney?
Again, I'll take that on notice, but there wasn't a tender process. We would usually use a local government procurement contract for debt collection services, but I'll confirm that and provide information.
Well, that's fair enough, but by the time you provide the information, this vote's been taken. My thought was, what do we know about outstanding collections?
We have utilised their services for about 12 months, and we've had a satisfactory level of service provided by them and some success in their approach to debt collection.
Thank you. I'm happy to take that as being a recommendation then.
Thank you. Any other Councillor Goodsall?
just got a question to Mr. Mayor. So we haven't acted on this since 2011, I don't believe.
That'll be about the last time.
So I'm just wondering, when will we be acting on it again? So will it be in another 5 years when there's 5 years of unpaid rates, or the balance of rates is more than the property value? When will we revisit it again?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it should be done on a more regular basis. So yes, at least every 5 to 7 years.
Okay,
Not 24 as we've got here.
have we?
Chair Thompson, you're right to reply.
Yeah, you're right to reply, yes.
In respect to the issue that Councillor Leslie raised, when we were during COVID and we engaged this company, I had some complaints from some residents in Portland. There was more misunderstanding than anything. But eventually the feedback I got from the residents that the company was extremely fair and reasonable to deal with. So I'm fully confident with them. I'd just like to clarify too, it was an email sent out by council, just so it's on record, that councillors, I think staff can, if they wish, I don't. But if you wish to purchase one of these properties at auctions, you can. However, I'm happy to be corrected if I'm wrong. Councillors and staff cannot purchase these properties if they do not sell by private treaty. Can we just get clarification on that, please?
That is correct, and that is set out in the Local Government Act. It's a transparent process, of course, a public auction. So that is permissible for councillors and or staff to purchase property, any of these properties at auction.
Thank you, Mr. Gurney. I just wanted that on public record. Thank you.
Okay, well, that's the right to reply. I'll put that then, councillors. Those in favour? Carried. 10.4.2, delivery program and operational plan. Somebody like to move? Move,
Sure.
Councillor Goodsall.
Happy to second.
Seconded, Councillor McAndrew. Councillor Goodsall.
I'm just happy to endorse the recommendation. It's council staff's role to put this together, and we place it on public exhibition, and then it's the residents' responsibility to make submissions and comment, and then it comes back to council and we debate it and make a decision then.
Yep. Councillor McAndrew.
Mayor supported, but I noted a late email from the GM out, well, a late email, I think, from Mr McGrath on behalf of the GM and what the process will be. Just wonder whether the GM should enlighten, should speak to some of that tonight.
I'm certainly happy to do that, and I'm looking at Mr McGrath, who can also perhaps embellish anything that will fill in any gaps that I leave out. But look, we've learned a lot out of COVID, and I think the community has also, and so there's a great comfort with WebExes and electronic forums, and so I'm really pleased to say I think we've come up with a quite engaging process of consultation on this exhibited document. So as the report suggests, the document will be put out to public exhibition. We're proposing a series of e-forums where these will all be advertised and people can phone in, dial into those, and so we'll be on a screen and we'll have chat lines, and we'll be answering questions. There'll be themes for finance, waste management, transport, infrastructure, water and wastewater. We're also proposing that we hold one community information session for anybody that's not comfortable with that form of communication. Proposing that in Lithgow at a forum that's able to take quite an unfettered number, and we'd be actively reaching out to community groups, associations, chambers of commerce, tidy towns and the like, and hoping that they come to that forum. And I think that'll be quite an inclusive and a good process. We'll also have opportunities for people just to make written submissions or email and the like. And then, of course, at the end of all of that, council's officers will assemble all of that information and bring a report back for council's consideration. Did I miss anything there, Michael? Did you want to add anything?
Thanks.
Any other commentary, councillors? Right, a reply, Councillor Goodsall. Okay, I shall put that then. Carried. Unanimous. Working capital strategy.
Mayor.
Moved, Councillor McAndrew. Who seconded? Councillor Ring. Councillor McAndrew.
Yeah, happy to move, and I touched on the GM has touched on this issue for some time about a working capital reserve, so well to be able to be used when required and needed. And I note there's urgent need for it. I look at the bottom of the page 47 of the report, where it talks about, in addition, council level internally restricted reserves have been decreasing from 16.1 mil in 2016-17 to 6.5 mil in 2019-20. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that, but in any event, it's a stark number. So we do need to be establishing a working capital reserve that we can use for emergencies, urgency, etc., etc.
Yes. Councillor Ring.
Mayor Thompson, to put it simply, this is like a big petty cash account. And I'm happy to be corrected if I'm wrong, but we need money to pay our bills on a weekly basis. In the past, we've had our financial accounts or our financial investments timed to make these payments. And that's very risky, as we have found out, particularly now that we've got very low interest rates and returns. There's not a lot of fat on the bone. By having the money there, we can pay our bills as the bonds or whatever mature, they go back in. The money goes against the appropriate projects. But at all times, we have money on hand to meet our immediate bills, our salary and other operating costs that fall on a fortnightly or weekly basis. I think this is overdue, and I think it's kudos to the council for coming up with it.
Thank you.
Mayor Thompson, if I may. We're in a really difficult financial situation. That's clear from this report, and I acknowledge that. And I support the recommendation. We only have 3 meetings left, and then a new council will come in September. The question I have through to you, Mayor, is will the councillors that are elected in September, will they receive in-depth financial training? Because clearly we need to be looking at that when the new council comes in.
General Manager.
Well, Mr Mayor, we'd be certainly looking and working with the Office of Local Government on an extensive induction program on all manner of the complexities of being a councillor, and yes, finances must be a primary component of that.
Thank you, Mr General Manager. Councillor McAndrew, right to reply? I shall put that then, councillors. Carried unanimous. 10.5, Uluru Statement of the Heart.
Mayor Thompson, with amendments.
I'll second it.
We'll listen to the amendment first. We'll change the recommendation.
Mayor Thompson, I have 2 recommendations to replace what's been written. That is that council defer any decision on the Uluru Statement from the Heart pending broader consultation with the local Indigenous community. Point 2, that council invite the Director of the Bathurst Aboriginal Land Council to a council briefing session to discuss the Uluru Statement of the Heart, the legislative role of the Land Council and the development of appropriate documents such as a reconciliation action plan, cultural protocols and an Aboriginal social development plan. I'm not advocating all of those, I'm just saying they're documents we need to look at and consider.
Have we got a seconder?
Councillor Goodwin.
Oh, Councillor Goodwin.
I'll second it under the debate.
Debate.
Have we got it up there?
It's coming.
I'm happy for it to get on the screen before I start talking.
Just a clarification.
It's not an amendment, it's a completely changed.
This is complete, the recommendation in the papers is not adopted, it's not being proposed, it's a complete different motion.
Yeah, it is, yes.
Not an amendment.
Yep.
So that's up now, so if you have him there, I'll talk to it. This is a very emotive issue for many people. It's also a very difficult and complex I don't fully understand the broader implications of the three reforms: voice, treaty, and truth in the Uluru Statement from the heart. To date, Council has only had a briefing on this matter by two young Wiradjuri women who do not have the cultural authority to speak on behalf of the broader community. And to their credit, they acknowledge that in the briefing. Now, today I went on to the website following the email from Michael McGrath saying that there's a closing date for submissions. It is not a requirement for Council to put in a submission. What is being asked, the government is running, the federal government is running a co-design program which is requesting submissions from anybody in the community on this process. And it's quite a complex process, and they're looking for ways it can be improved or altered. Now, for those who, I think everyone was here for the presentation by the two young women, the voice is like a parliamentary review board or something of that nature at this level, which will review legislation that impacts directly on Indigenous people. But looking at the co-design side today, what I found is that they're also talking about having 35 or up to 35 local and regional voice committees, commissions, whatever. I don't fully understand this. I don't understand the impact on how we operate. And as a council, I believe we need to be talking to the broader Indigenous community on this matter. And that includes the Wiradjuri, who are the traditional owners of the majority of the Lithgow LGA. Other Indigenous community members, and we have people here from tribes that are originally from the north, like Bob Suter, and the appropriate Gundungara elders. The Gundungara elders need to be consulted because they have an Indigenous land use agreement registered with the National Native Title Tribunal that encompasses Lithgow LGA lands east of Rivulet and Genola Caves Road. Now, there's lots of arguments about where the borders go. That's irrelevant. This title's there. That gives that group certain rights for discussion and involvement. I have discussed this report with the Director of the Bathurst Aboriginal Land Council. She does not personally believe that it's appropriate at this stage. If Council endorses the attached submission, it will not have any impact on the lives of our Indigenous brothers and sisters. Adoption of the statement by the government will require a national referendum. This is one of those issues where it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. If we don't support it now, then there'll be people saying you're racist, you don't care about the community. On the other hand, there'll be members of the same community saying this is nothing more than tokenism. The broad Indigenous community across Australia is not one voice. There are many voices, and not everyone supports this. I don't know if I support it because I don't fully understand it. As a council, I can't go down that path. But what I have discussed and looked at, particularly Bathurst and Orange, they have very detailed protocols for engaging with the Indigenous community. And when you think about the Indigenous community, there are two components. Traditional owners who speak for the land and speak on cultural matters and heritage. And the other Indigenous matters, other Indigenous members of the community who are non-traditional owners who want to speak about social issues and social welfare. At this stage, I'm proposing the Council seeks greater clarification and understanding of the Uluru Statement of Heart before committing this community to it. Instead, I'm proposing that we build upon the work already started by Council in relation to Mayanga Marigu and engage with our community to develop appropriate protocols and programs that allow Council to engage meaningfully with our Indigenous community and to bring about real change within our LGA. At the moment, we have a fractured community that is not working together. You'll always get that. But I think our community deserves more than tokenism. I think they deserve something that we can do that is tangible, that will help them. Any council in this room who feels passionately about this statement can write to the co-design commission and put in a submission. But I prefer to see something done that will have actual impact and lead to some positive outcomes for our community. And remember, we have a population now of 6.4% at the last census of Indigenous people. And we need to provide them with greater support and a greater say. And Councillor Goodwin was right to raise the issue of Manga Marigold to get all the groups together. We've just had a $300,000 grant to one group, and that is causing more divide within the various groups in our community. Thank you.
Councillor Goodwin.
I've listened to what Councillor Ring has said, and I've pondered over this for a bit. I think, as Councillor Ring said, damned if we do, damned if we don't. I think I'd rather be damned if we do now at this stage. So I don't think I'm going to support the amendment or the new motion by Councillor Ring. I think that we should be doing something now. I think at the end of April, this submission is finalised. I think we have it finalised by the end of April. And I think that if we support it as council, even though it is quite, I certainly don't know the ins and outs of the exact meaning of what the Uluru Statement is saying, but I know the direction that it's going in, and that's the direction that I'd like the council to go in as well. And that's the direction I'm going to go in. I'd rather be doing something than not be doing anything. So,
Mayor Thompson, I'm happy to move the original recommendation.
As an amendment?
As an amendment, please.
I'll second it. I'll second that. Oh, there it is. I'll second that.
Okay, I've got an amendment now, moved by Councillor Coleman and seconded by Councillor Leslie. Is that negative to the
Recommendation.
the council endorsed the draft submission?
If it's an opposite, it may have to be a foreshadowed motion.
Yes.
And I'm happy to foreshadow a motion.
Yeah. I was just trying to get some clarification on that.
Depending on the debate, I'm happy to put forward a foreshadowed motion.
Thank you. Righto, Councillor Coleman.
I just want to pick up on where Councillor Goodwin said, damned if we do or damned if we don't, and I'm in agreement with Councillor Goodwin. I think we need to move forward with the submission and go back to the original recommendation that we endorse the draft submission, which I believe has been put together by Mr. McGrath. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yours not. Okay. So can I ask Mr. McGrath a few questions on the statement? Is that right?
You certainly can.
Please.
That's what we're here for.
Thank you.
Mr. McGrath.
So I've pulled up the Lithgow City Council draft submission. It's, it's only 3 paragraphs, but it's to the point. It's very clear. And it states in that draft submission one point that I really acknowledge. A voice to Parliament enshrined in the Constitution. I believe that there should be a voice to Parliament enshrined in the Constitution. So I agree with that part in the draft submission. I think that's very powerful. I also believe that the government must honour its election commitment to a referendum, which is also in that draft submission. So that's also made in that point. And at the bottom, the Uluru Statement from the Heart is called from First Nations people to all of us, and it's essential that they are heard. It is essential that they are heard. So I support this draft submission. That's why I've moved the original recommendation.
Can we get some clarification? I take it that Councillor Coleman is speaking against the motion. Because the amendment can't be in complete negative of the motion, which it is.
So that means
that's why I'm foreshadowing the motion.
Yeah. But yeah. So Councillor Ring, I think Councillor Ring. Oh, sorry. I think Councillor Ring moved a deferral, didn't he?
Yeah.
Which isn't a complete. it's not a complete opposite. If he's only moved a deferral, that's the clarification I was asking of the General Manager. Moving a deferral is not a complete...
But the problem with that, Mayor, we've got 5 days.
Yeah, I understand that.
We've got 5 days.
I understand that.
31st of this month.
But we're not finished with the debate yet either, so we'll see where it takes us. Councillor Leslie.
Thank you. I don't believe this is an opposition. This is just a different tactic to take it. Look, we had two young women come here at our briefing session. They spoke passionately, they spoke with enthusiasm, and they spoke from the heart. And I think we need to respect that. It was really reassuring to hear that. And the last sentence of this draft submission is, the Uluru Statement from the heart is a call from First Nations peoples to all of us, and it is essential they are heard. Now, the Uluru Statement isn't a Wiradjuri statement. It's a statement from First Nation peoples all over Australia that met at Uluru and asked for this voice to Parliament. Now, it needs to be respected, and you either agree with it or don't, and I think it is with Councillor Coleman, that I do agree with it, and I think we need to respect their passion and respect the fact that, you know, that the Indigenous people of this, the First Nations people of this continent have been treated, you know, appallingly for 230 years. And we need to adjust that and fix that and look at it and make sure that, you know, that they get a proper voice in Parliament and for a referendum to be put to the Australian people to do that. I would ask that should this draft submission be endorsed, that on the Council's website, that we just take away the statement at the moment for attachments, which is simply Lithgow Council draft submission, and actually put it as a statement. Thank you. It's a statement from the heart from First Nations people. So it's very clear that anyone who's looking up the council business paper knows exactly what they're looking up, and it shows that Lithgow Council has endorsed it. Now,
If I could just make a short statement. I've spoken to some senior Indigenous people in the town, and they don't believe that Lithgow should be involved in Uluru whatsoever. But in saying that, I also was here when the two young ladies spoke, and I think that on that particular day, I think that the council in general gave them the support that we would acknowledge the what do you call it? The statement of the heart, the Uluru Statement of the Heart. I believe that it may be tokenism to support what they put that day, but in saying, and I think you could incorporate everything that Councillor Ring put, as well as the tokenism of saying we support the Uluru Statement of the Heart. I think we could incorporate everything that Councillor Ring said in his statement as well. Councillor McAndrew.
Yeah, Mayor, before I get to my foreshadowed motion, I'm speaking against the current motion, and but I've got some questions. Councillors come to information sessions in their own time, and a lot of those are very lengthy. I came to that information session in relation to the presentation by our Indigenous people on the basis that they were speaking for everyone. That was my understanding. Well, that was my understanding. That's why I came along, and you know, there was a great presentation by them, and to be quite honest, if there were some concerns being put forward now, they should have been asked at that presentation, to be quite blunt. To put it off or defer it, we just haven't got the time. It's 31st. Mr McGrath sent through an email saying that the date has been moved, but it's only been moved 5 days. From today, it's only been moved from today 5 days to the 31st of this month for the opportunity. My procedural, so my foreshadowed motion doesn't pick up what's there and doesn't pick up what the original recommendation is. My foreshadowed motion has 2 parts. Council endorse the Uluru Statement and commit to ongoing consultation with and inclusion of the First Nations community of the local government area. 2, Council write a submission outlining their support for the three reforms, voice, treaty and truth in the Uluru Statement from the heart. That comes from the commentary, Mayor, so it doesn't have to be rewritten. That comes from part 1 and part 2 of the commentary. Because what the original recommendation hasn't picked up on is ongoing consultation with and inclusion of the First Nations community of the LGA, which I know Councillor Goodman was pretty keen on and pretty strong on at that time. So there's my foreshadowed motion.
Yep. Have I got a second to Councillor McAndrew's foreshadowed motion?
Yeah.
Councillor Smith? Yeah, I'll put the original motion first.
It's not complicated.
Yep. Okay, I'm going to put the amendment first. Councillor Coleman, are those in favour of the amendment?
Sorry, Mr Mayor, can I just get some clarification? Are we voting on Councillor Coleman's?
We're voting on the amendment. It's Councillor Coleman's. Her amendment. Councillor Ring put up the original motion. Councillor Coleman put up an amendment. We're going to vote on that first. Then we'll vote on the motion, and then we'll go vote on Councillor McAndrew's foreshadowed motion.
So will I get an opportunity to speak?
You will.
Thanks.
You will be able to speak. You'll be able to speak to the foreshadowed motion. Have you spoken to the amendment?
No.
Right. Okay. Is that what you want to speak to?
Yes, I'm speaking to the original motion.
No, we're speaking to the amendment. We're putting the amendment first.
Which is written the same as...
Written is what's written on the paper. Is that what you want to speak to?
Yes.
Right.
Sorry.
Okay.
It was very complicated.
It is.
To say that this Uluru Statement has no impact is baffling to me. I'm not torn either one way or the other. I'm very definite and I'm very passionate about this. It's a start. It doesn't matter that the whole community weren't represented. We never get representations from and everybody agreeing to everything all of the time. The impact will be that this is the beginning, and council are working behind the scenes to establish a consultative group, either managed by council, a committee of council, or a committee of some, hopefully it's a committee of council, where that will provide a platform for all of our Indigenous community to raise their concerns, and that is where it is not tokenistic. You cannot say that the Uluru Statement from the Heart, Voice, Treaty, Truth is tokenistic. There will be some real ground gained once we do this. And if it brings others out and elders are uncertain of it or they don't support it, that's a good thing. That might encourage them to be part of our conversations with the broader community, with council supporting that. I fully endorse the original recommendation, which is now the amendment. As a council and a community, we need not to just listen, but to hear. And those girls came here on that day, and they spoke, and it was passionate. And who cares if it's 2 people out of 3 billion? What they had to say on the day was relevant, and the Uluru Statement is relevant. And I support the amendment.
Okay.
Mayor Thompson, I'd like to speak to the amendment if I may.
Yes.
Obviously, I'm not going to support it. But what I would like to say that in Aboriginal culture, it is the elders that speak for the community, not young girls. They spoke well, they were passionate, they were articulate, well educated. I respect them. But if we want credibility with the community, the Indigenous community, we have to respect their traditions and their culture, and that is you deal with the elders. It is the elders who speak for the community, not young people, regardless if they're male or female. It is the elders, the acknowledged elders, and they are the ones that we need to be engaging with. That's all I wish to say.
Is there any other comment on the amendment? I shall put the amendment there. Those in favour of the amendment? Those against? I declare the amendment lost. I shall now
Did
put...
we get a account for that?
Yes, we certainly can. Those that support the amendment, Councillor Coleman, Goodsall and Leslie. Those against is Councillor Ring, Goodwin, McAndrew, Thompson and Smith. 5-3. I shall now put the... I shall now put the motion, which was Councillor Ring's original motion. Those in favour of the original motion? It's Councillor Ring. Those against? Now I've got a foreshadowed motion now by Councillor McAndrew. Is that up there? Seconded by Councillor Smith. Do you want to speak to that now, Councillor McAndrew?
Yeah, look, I'm just checking it, Mayor.
Yep.
For completeness, the submission should follow as I understand, the submission has been prepared by our community development team. So that second point, Councillor Ryder's submission as outlined as an attachment to this report, and then that makes it very clear.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to speak to it.
You're right now?
Yep. Yeah, I am, Mayor. I speak to it on the basis that the motion moved certainly was against. The amendment moved didn't pick up, in my view, an important part that's in the commentary, and that was in relation to point 1, the ongoing consultation with and inclusion of the First Nations community of the LGA. My view was, and it hasn't changed from when we were given that presentation, is that once there's a more formal process in place in relation to voice, treaty and truth, then that says to me that'll filter down, right down federally, state and down to a local government areas, where I think that'll end up enabling a more clearer way of dealing with these matters at a grassroots level, instead of, people keep telling me there's 7 different points of view. Well, we can't have 7 different points of view. We've got to have the one point of view for the majority of our Indigenous people within our community. And anything that leads to that, I think, is a good thing. Where council can't play the referee and trying to deal with 7 different views. It's impossible. It's not in the best interest of our residents and ratepayers, and certainly not in the best interest of our Indigenous people. We've got to come to a landing on what is in the best interest of the majority of it. That's what democracy is. And I think this process can lead to some set guidelines in relation to it, and that's why I support it.
Councillor Smith?
First thing I'd like to see, I second that. Girls, not Councillor Coleman. Lady, sorry. No, I think that Councillor McAndrew's resolution covers everything we need to hear out of this report, and just put the vote.
Any other commentary on the foreshadowed motion? Or Councillor McAndrew's motion? No? I shall put that then. Those in favour? Those against? Councillor Ring. Against?
Again, Mr. Mayor, if we could get those names recorded.
Yeah, well, the division was everybody except Councillor Ring. Yep.
That's normal practice. I don't know why it's
practice. Yeah, everything's recorded.
Everything's recorded. Normal practice. You're right, Councillor Ring. Normal practice.
The normal practice is that the Mayor names the people voting for and against.
No, it's not.
Normal. We have a motion, clearly, and not changed. We've got all voting in these council chambers. Those who vote for and those who vote against will be named. That's right.
I'd just like to...
Well, it's for the record and for the video is what I'm talking about, and it's not happening.
What do you want me to call every time that
It's been the standard practice that every vote, the Mayor names the people who are voting for,
right.
Names the people who are voting against. And that is not happening, and it hasn't happened a few times tonight.
He's right, Mayor. I was more thinking of the formal minute that we've got and the policy we've got that says all names will be recorded in the minutes of those who vote for and against matters.
I just think inadvertently, sorry Mr Mayor, can I speak? That sometimes you say for and then you name the councillor that's against. I think is that what you're referring to, councillor?
No. Well, that's what I've been doing though. If there's been anybody against, I call the councillors that are against. So that just means that everybody else is for. But I shall call them one by one. If that's the council. Yeah. Righto, we move to adoption of alcohol-free zone.
10.52.
Councillor Smith.
It's
And who seconded, I'm sorry? Councillor Ring?
It's pretty self-explanatory. The only question I'd like to ask the management is, it says you'll install and modify appropriate alcohol-free zones after tonight gets through. Is there a timeline we'll start on that?
Who's Mr McGrath.
Thanks. We'll start straight away. Okay. Yeah, thank you for the way to go. Thank you.
Councillor Ring?
Look, I have no problem with it. I think it's good. It's a standard practice. It's just an administrative procedure. However, when this was put out to the public in a media release, it caused a lot of confusion. And there are a lot of negative comments on Facebook, surprisingly. Facebook is a useful tool. You can get the negatives, you can get the rat bags, but it's a very useful tool for disseminating information within this community. What we needed was to put out that this was purely administrative procedure, legally required, and that we're only extending existing things. Because people are claiming that this is going to cost a fortune, this is going to do this, bang, why are we doing it? It's already done. All we're doing is extending it. I just think we need to maybe do the information sharing with the community just a bit more clearer, rather than the implication that this is something new. It's not. Thank you.
Fair enough. Any other commentary, councillors?
Yeah, just to pick up on Councillor King's comments, look at page 52 or 64. It went out to the community for submissions, and there were none.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the face.
Well, yeah, but I've got the chair. You know, we've gone out, and I've said there's many ways that we go out and publicise things, not just on Facebook. And I'm simply saying on page 52 that we've gone out for community submissions. There was the opportunity for people to agree, disagree, have views about it, or whatever. You know, I'm just not sure what else council needs to do.
Yeah. Any other commentary? I shall put that then. Those in favour? Declared carried unanimously. Council reports. Let's go Local Heritage Committee minutes. That was at the last meeting.
Can I move that, please?
Move Councillor Coleman. Seconded Councillor Goodsall, was it?
I think it should be correct as the last meeting of the committee is removed. Because member councils asked for report on the Heritage Committee earlier. So it would be the last to remove those was December 2021.
Yeah.
I'd like to change the recommendation that we note the minutes.
Yes. I'm happy to second that.
Okay.
Just note the minutes, not received. But I think we need to take receive out and just the council note the minutes.
Okay.
Of the Lithgow Local Heritage Advisory Committee held on the 8th of March 2021, full stop, delete as the last meeting of the committee. So that council note and receive the minutes of the Lithgow Local Heritage Advisory Committee held on the 8th of March 2021, full stop, delete as the last meeting of the committee.
Okay, you happy with that?
And that clears that up.
Right, you want to speak, Councillor Coleman?
Yes, please. I would just like to say a big thank you to Danny Whitty for his service on this committee. He should be acknowledged for that. That's the first thing I want to say. Just a big thank you to him. And I just have a question in regards to the Lithgow Pottery and Brickworks. Can someone give us some information on that? That looks quite interesting. I read the minutes and I was quite curious about that. Can we get some information on that?
I will look to Mr McGrath just in case I don't quite get it right, because I know that one of his staff has actually taken carriage of this one, but the Lithgow Pottery and Brickworks, part of that site is owned by council and part of that site is owned by another party. And it is a heritage item of state significance, I believe, I think. And in that regard, the council, through its normal annual budget process, has funded the production of a conservation management plan, and that is in process at the moment.
Thank you, that sounds
Okay.
exciting.
Right, Councillor Goodsall, you want to speak to that?
No, I don't know.
Okay. I shall put that then. Thank you. Carried unanimous. Youth Advisory Committee meeting minutes.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
Councillor Coleman.
Thanks, Mayor Thompson. I know that the Youth Council have written a submission in support of the enshrined voice in the Constitution. Can we just get some detail on that? Can I get a copy, please? Because that's in the minutes. Mr McGrath, I believe, through you, the Mayor.
Yep.
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes, they have. The Youth Council did put in a submission some time ago. I can send that out to councillors. I imagine it would be very similar to the draft submission that we've also received.
So the Uluru Statement. Yep. So that's great to see that our Youth Committee are also in the same frame of mind as the council. That's great. Thanks.
Mayor Thompson, if I may, it was in the previous minutes of the Youth Council where it was documented.
That's all right. Mr McGrath can send me a copy. Thank you.
Councillor McKendra? No. I shall put that then, councillors, if there's no more commentary. Carried unanimous. Eric, minutes, 9th of March.
I move the motion.
Happy to second.
Councillor Ring?
No, look, it's self-explanatory. It is a good committee, as I've previously said. Since the last meeting, we've all done a self-assessment, sent that into the analysed and looked at for the joint committee. So it'll be interesting to see what the results come out of that.
Councillor McKendra? No. I shall put that then,
Mayor Thompson.
No, sorry.
I note that, like, I support the recommendation, just have to question. I note that the Auditor General's report on procurement management in local government, Lithgow Council will take action to implement 4 improvement opportunities identified in the report. What are the 4 improvement opportunities? Can we get some detail on that? I looked through the minutes and I couldn't quite locate it. So,
Mr Gurney.
Mr Gurney?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I will send out the report I provided to the Audit Risk and Improvement Committee, which provides details on those improvements. Just to give a very brief outline, there were simply suggestions in the report on how councils could improve. Lithgow already had a number of them in place, but there were 4 we saw we could put in place as well.
So there's another 4, so, because I couldn't find them in the minutes, that's all. So you'll send that out, great. Thank you.
Councillor Ring? I shall put that then, councillors, those in favour? Carried unanimous. Operations Committee meeting minutes.
Happy to move.
Move Councillor
Happy
Goodsall.
to second.
Councillor Goodsall.
No, Mr Mayor.
No. Councillor Ring.
No, it's self-explanatory.
Any commentary, councillors? Yes.
Yes, Mr Mayor. I refer to tonight's business paper, item 13.1, Portland STP. Was this matter discussed at the Operations Committee meeting?
No.
No.
got a follow-up question, if I may, which is, we have a standing item, water and sewer infrastructure update. If that's a standing item, what do they discuss if not this particular item, 13.1?
Well, it wasn't on the agenda. That'll be answered. You can ask that question later on. Okay. Any other commentary, councillors? I shall put that then. Thank you. It's carried unanimous. Women's Advisory Committee minutes.
Happy to move.
Councillor Coleman. Who seconded? Councillor Ring. Councillor Coleman.
No, I have no comment on it.
Councillor Ring.
No.
Right, I shall put that. Those in favour? Carried unanimous. Sports Advisory Committee. Councillor Smith and Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Smith.
No commentary.
Okay, I shall put that then. Those in favour? Against? No. Carried unanimous. Item 12, business of great urgency.
And just a question, if I may. I know during the week we will send, or council will send a memo regarding the calling in of an DA application that I called in. Normally it would come to council. My question is, should I put forward now an on-site meeting or wait till it comes formally to council?
I believe that we could do that tonight and
it just seems it would
well, it's going to
make it quicker instead of waiting for it to come formally to council and then we ask for an on-site meeting.
Yeah, that's exactly what would happen.
Yeah.
Is any councillors got any problem with that?
Depends when the meeting is.
It'll be the earliest will be the next month.
It'll be within.
May not be.
It'll be within the next month. We'll tell Mr. Muir.
Yeah. Certainly, hopefully, before the matter comes formally here to council.
Yeah.
We'll Mr. Mayor, if it's okay, we'll look at some dates in the next 2 weeks and see if we can organise something.
Yeah. That makes sense. It does make sense.
I thought so.
Yeah. Any other business great urgency? Okay, we shall move to closed council. We've got 4 reports in closed council. We've got Portland STP, water mains replacement tender, proposed sale of industrial lot 55 Inch Street, and a closed report on the tender for construction of a new store building.
Mr. Mayor, I have a motion. I'd like to move that the 13.1 Portland STP be debated in open council. The reason for confidentiality, E, information that would, if disclosed, prejudice the maintenance of law, seems to me pretty lame. When I look at the items that you can use to have the confidential matter, personal matters, that's reasonable. Personal hardship, that's reasonable. Information that would give a commercial advantage, that's reasonable. Commercial information of confidential nature, prejudicial to commercial position or confer commercial advantage, that seems reasonable. Matters affecting the security of the council, advice concerning litigation, information concerning the nature of a location of Aboriginal significance, or even, that's amusing for me, any code of conduct requirements. They all seem reasonable, but E, information that would, if disclosed, prejudice the maintenance of law, seems to be very lame, and I think, therefore, we need to debate this matter in open council.
Yes.
I'll get the General Manager to speak to that.
Mr. Mayor, as a matter of principle and through the law also, substantially matters should come to the open council, except in specific circumstances, and we're very guarded in complying with those requirements. The matters that are recommended for closed session of council qualify from an administrative perspective. I vouch to the council that they qualify to be dealt with in closed council, but it's a matter for the council to form an opinion.
Can I ask which law we're wanting to maintain?
Mr Mayor, at this point the matters are subject to ongoing legal proceedings. We're in a process that we're required to work through and engage with the council. I say before the public on the video that if council's of the mind after dealing with the matter in a closed session, they can bring it out into the open council.
Yeah, no, I fully concur with the General Manager. Does anybody else want to speak to this before I put it to the council?
I agree. Look, we're dealing with the EPA. They can be sensitive. We don't want to prejudice our position. I believe it's appropriate to discuss it in closed session.
I fully agree.
Mayor, I'm happy to move that the 13.1, 13.2, 13.3 and 13.4 will go into closed council.
That'd be the second.
Okay, I shall put that to council. Those in favour? Those against? Councillor Leslie's against.
Councillors, through Mr Mayor, at Council's closed session, Council dealt with item 13.1, Portland STP, and resolved that the report relating to Portland STP be received. In
Please
relation,
have my name recorded as having voted against that.
Yes.
At item 13.2, water mains replacement tender, Colebrook Street and Stevenson Street, Council resolved that in accordance with clause 178, brackets 1, brackets A of the Local Government General Regulation 2005, accept the tender submission from Burke Pipe and Civil Contractors for the replacement of the Colebrook and Stevenson Streets water mains for $538,440. Authorise the General Manager to execute the contract on behalf of Council under delegated authority. In relation to item 13.3, the proposed sale of industrial land, lot 55 Inns Street, Lithgow, Council resolved that Council consider the information in this report relating to the sale of lot 55 in DP 1124083. In relation to item 13.4, tender for the construction of a new store building, Council resolved that Council accept the tender from Structure Projects Proprietary Limited in the amount of $828,733 for the construction of the new council store building with a total project budget of $1.038 million. Number 2, delegate to the General Manager authority to enter a contract with Structure Projects Proprietary Limited in accordance with the tender for the construction of the new store building. And number 3, Council note the phasing of the project for the 21-22 financial year and the project's inclusion in the Capital Works program for that year.
Okay, I declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much, councillors. Thank you very much, staff.